It didn't take a toll on me until I got older and becoming more aware about it and just realising, wow, I'm a grandchild of a stolen generation survivor, and I knew that I had to tell that story. Yama, my name is Ellie-Rose Welsh. I am a Paragamori woman, and I was born and raised on Duncan country. My grandfather, Raymond Bradford Welsh, he was 7 or 8 when he fell off a sulky and crushed his leg, and he was sent to Royal Alexandra Hospital for Children and had to recover there for 3 months. And around 1939, after he was well enough recovered, the Aboriginal board took him from the hospital and took him all the way to Kinchela Boys' Home near Kempsey, where his parents didn't know where he was, nor could they consented. Trauma impacted him so much to the point that he wouldn't even open up to his own kids until when the grandkids started coming along. That's when he actually started opening up. And in 2002, where Kinchela Boys' Home reunion started, that's when they had a yarning circle and just talked about the trauma, the grief, the experience of it. That's when my auntie's like saying, "Oh, Dad, can you tell me about your experience with it?" And that's when he actually started opening up more. When he was 15, they sent him out to work on farm as a farmhand near Gunnedah, where my aunties and uncles and dad grew up. So he met a family there, an Aboriginal couple actually, Mr. and Mrs. Ray Smith, and basically raised him as his own. And he was one of the lucky survivors who actually met a Aboriginal couple, unlike the others who probably had some white families. And I got to meet an old relative who also been to Kinchela, but he was the younger stolen generations boy, and he told me about his experience as well, which was very impacted on me as I only just recently seen him. And getting to hear another family relative and then comparing it to my grandfather's, it's like they've gone through the exact same thing. When me, my brothers and dad used to go visit him along with my auntie and uncle who took care of him, I remember him around the house, he had these nullas, so like weapons and all that, a weapon stick. And I never questioned about it until now, where his people, he remembers the traditional ceremonies, the dancing and the languages that his people used to perform and talk. And his mother's brothers taught him how to make nullas and spears. And I remember seeing a nulla on like against the wall, and I'm like thinking, what is that? And not knowing it, because it looked like a walking stick. But now looking back at him, like that's where he probably started making them. That's the only thing that actually kept him from remembering his home, I reckon. It never really occurred to me what was actually about, because, you know, going to a primary school with, I feel like being the only Aboriginal person there, it always caught off me guard. I was like, why am I feeling always sad on this day when my mum or my dad or anyone talks about it? Until finding out that Sorry Day was stolen generations, that's when I was like, oh shit, that's what has actually happened, and I feel closure but not enough closure. And then finding out my grandfather was also a part of that, that was the big emotional changer in a way. I don't know how to describe it, but the thing was that it took so much grief and it was never spoken enough. And being the only acknowledged Aboriginal girl there, I would always talk to them about it as in like giving them another history lesson, because I know what has happened, and other people just don't know. They don't want to accept it, that I'm actually talking about it. And I want to give awareness, and hopefully that can impact on other younger generations to talk about stolen generations as well, because it's not just a storytelling, it's a yarn, it's a healing thing. The impact was so big, it can't be unforgivable or unforgettable, because, you know, it was a very impacted thing on the Aboriginal communities everywhere in the country. And there is a lot of mystery questions about who it was, my family, who was part of it, because I still don't know some of the things that my grandfather's been through, so I'm still learning about that. And the legacy with it, you just gotta keep telling stories about it. That's how you keep the legacy up. And by talking to elders who's been through it, and I'm the future to talk about the stolen generations and what has happened at Kinchela. My aunties and uncles would always tell me that I know it's hurtful, but it's something that you have to know to keep grandfather's memory and story alive, so it's not forgotten. I was in the car with Dad one day when he picked me up from high school, and I asked him, I say, Dad, do you remember anything about grandfather and his father? He says, oh, I don't know a lot, but Dad remembers grandfather telling him that grandfather remembers his father drawing on the sand and making symbols, but he doesn't remember what symbols they were. Like, just the thought of grandfather being out country where he belongs with his family and his community, that's very, very impacted. And I still like to think about it, always whether thinking, oh, I wonder what he drew on the sand, or I wonder how grandfather actually remembered that as a kid before he got taken away.